we are going to have a special guest. Now, for those of y'all who hang out on the stream, y'all know the business. And for those of y'all who tuned in, to, I believe, either the last podcast or the podcast before, we have a guest with us. And y'all may know him as the one and the only Pastor Dumplings. Good sir, hello, are you there?
What's up? Praise the DR! What's up, bro?
Woo! What's up, baby? How you doing, man? Thanks for coming on to the podcast. What's going? Yeah, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing good, man. Hey, I always happy to be on the podcast, so hey, especially now that I'm winning.
Oh man, so y'all already know the business. We here to talk about deep dive, and now of course I gotta have this picture up because UMP 40 in the story. Hey, I thought that it was fire, and I just like this picture overall. So going into the deep dive segment with my man Pastor Dumplings, you and I, man, we have a lot of dude. I think it was at least 3, 4, 5 hours about deep dive ranking map alone, and there were a lot of things that we came to conclusion and we came to talk about with. But before we get into any of that, now that deep dive is over and we can compare it, fully and truly to Arctic Warfare, what are your thoughts about deep dive and everything that we had to do with it, Pastor Dumplings?
I would say overall, this event was really, really fun and really, really good for the game. I think the community overall can agree with me when I say Arctic Warfare was not as good as Deep Dive, to put it nicely. Especially the way that you farmed the envelopes in Arctic Warfare, it was really frustrating and excruciating.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think we can both agree the crates were a lot easier and more enjoyable to get than the envelopes.
Hey, amen to that. Hey, say it one more time for the guy in the back. Woo, man. If y'all didn't go, look, let me tell y'all something. Hey, I got to praise I gotta call this man out on his dedication for them envelopes, because let me tell y'all something. Them envelopes in chapter 3. Let me tell you, your boy bowed out as soon as I got that second 5.7, because I was doing 3.4, and I think you were doing 3.2 in Arctic Warfare, right?
Yeah.
I was doing 3.4 with the boss map, and as soon as I got my second 5.7, I stopped doing chapter 3 altogether. This man was so crazy enough to turn around and do the entirety of the whole event on chapter 3 every single day. I cannot believe. I don't know. Why? Why would you do that?
I need those tokens, bro.
Yo, dude, I ain't mad at you, man. I should have seen it coming. When my man said he'll fight a dude on the freeway for a token, I had to see that one coming, man. I respect that a lot, dude. But before I cut you off, you were saying that it was much better than farming against the red envelopes. How was the? I don't know. Do you care about the story? Did you read it? Do you not read the story? How was the ranking map for you? Was that fun comparatively? You got any more thoughts about deep dive overall, or is that all for deep dive?
Story-wise, I'm not into the GFL story, unfortunately. I really should, especially as much time as I sink into this game. I should really sit down, read the story, get into it.
Mm-hmm.
From the people that I do know that read the story, say, hey, it was insane. It was really, it was super good. So,
Right.
I mean, I can't judge that, but everyone's saying it's good, so I'm going to trust them on that.
Mm-hmm.
With the ranking map, it was much better than Arctic Warfare.
Much better.
And that's from me getting top 100 on both,
Mm-hmm.
relatively the same spot too. Got 55 on Arctic Warfare, 52 on Deep Dive. So
Okay.
yeah, so I mean, Arctic Warfare, everyone can agree it was just RNG.
Yeah, 100%.
Literally,
Mm-hmm.
the only reason why I got top 100 on Arctic Warfare was because I was on it every day, just praying to RNG. Just don't give me those dogs, no dogs. You know what I'm
Bro.
saying? And
Oh, those dogs.
overall, deep dive was less RNG, but once we get into the like us talking more into the ranking map in depth, I'll talk to you about why I kind of think it's somewhat RNG
Okay.
and my overall like strategy on it and my like thoughts
Okay.
more in depth.
Okay. All right. So for me, deep dive was so much fun, dude. I cannot tell you, like, when I'm talking about, we go from farming 02 all day all night and then going to Arctic Warfare. Dude, I thought Arctic Warfare was like sent from the heavens. I thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then we go back to 02. Got to go back to the slums. If y'all know, hey, for y'all that gamble the waifu points in the Twitch chat, if y'all know when I hit that hard reset and everybody went back to the slums together, farming them waifu points, man, that's what it felt like after Arctic Warfare. And I said, man, how you gonna give me the finest steak, the finest robes, the finest anything that you can imagine, And then you send me back out into the wilderness, man. I don't want to do it, man. And then I thought Arctic Warfare was fantastic, man. And then they gave me deep dive. Now, comparing the story from one another, I think it's just the continuity and it has to lead that way. And the story, oh my lord, the story, dude. I love the story. And so we had the story. And then the actual story maps that we had to clear, dude. I cannot believe how much fun they were. When it came to Arctic Warfare, it was just a grind. It was just hard, put your nose to the grindstone and you just got to do it. And it wasn't really that fun. But dude, I'm telling you, there were maps throughout the story missions that were so much fun, dude. Of course, I went into it blind. I don't know if you did. But I was so engrossed and I was figuring everything out. And I was like, oh man, yo, hey, this is what's going on over here. And yo, I got to check out for this. And dude, I was legit worried that I was going to fail one of the maps. Now, of course, that wouldn't mean anything. That's no hurt to anything except my pride and my ego. But the fact that I was on my seat, having to be yo, please don't break the supply line in 3-2. Please don't mess me up over here. And please, let me get this done. And kiting Gaia and 3-4 and just all the things that just piled together, man. It really, it really noticed the labor of my work when I got to use all these dolls and have fun with them and be like, oh hey, I'm using these dolls, bet let me try these dolls, or let me play with this a little bit and let me do that and let me try this. And it just felt so good to turn around and just play the game at a intellectually stimulating level compared to just 0-2 1 2 3 4 clicks. All right, what's popping in the chat? What's going on, man? Hey, we got the music banging. You know what I'm saying? And so, man, deep dive. I thought Arctic Warfare, man. Now, if I compare deep dive the event to Arctic Warfare, boy, you talking about deep dive being a steak, and you talking about Arctic Warfare being, a dollar menu cheeseburger at McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? And so, man, deep dive was something that was so fun and so just it was a breath of fresh air that was very much needed. And like you said, the less RNG, it was just so beautiful because I remember being, Arctic Warfare. Turn 18. Oh, got some dogs. Got to reset. And it's only a 20 turn map. And so, decreasing the amount of turns, going to 15 turns here was awesome. And just seeing, the manticores and kiting. And I can't praise this event enough. It was so much fun for me. But one thing that you didn't mention was your ranking and your score.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
For those of y'all who don't know, me and Dumplilngs had a little bit of WWE segment going on where we was just mad trash talking each other and we were just going at each other. I'm talking about, I would say, a month and a half out of deep dive. We just got at each other even more and more and more. And so on the screen here, I think, what rank did you say you were? 52 or 51? 52. And on the screen here, y'all heard the man, he got 52. Now, I'll say this, hey, I got into the top 100 as well. Now, of course, a huge shout out to Twitch chat because they helped me immensely on my run. You know, if it wasn't for Twitch chat, I would not have gotten it. But I will say this: all I did was kite, and that's all I'm gonna take credit for was the kiting and leveling the units, and that's about it. But I will now present to y'all the losers interview of who got the higher score, and here it is. I got ranked 71 with a score 669, 718, and as y'all heard previously, Dumplings hit 52 with a score of 672, 760. Mr. Dumplings, Pastor Dumplings, it's your time to shine, baby. Whatever you want to say, whatever you want to ask me, whatever you want to do, you lead the way on this one because look, it's your time to shine.
I just want to say to everyone who doubted hashtag Team Dumplings, y'all don't know who I am or what I do. Because I be out here winning every time. Every time. Without fail. And you know what's funny is the thing I called out in the initial interview on the other podcast. I was like, hey man, it's my equipment that's gonna win me this. And hey, it did. And honestly, I think you can agree. If it weren't for my equipment, I think I would have lost this.
Yes.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yes. And Dumplings, if you don't mind, I'll try to lead the way in which you're talking about. So after my final run, which I believe was on a Sunday, and the event ended on that Tuesday, you and I got together and we were, in VC for a very long time. And we were kind of talking and we were comparing and contrasting, his fairies to my fairies, my equipment to his equipment, and my units to his units and things of that nature. And so when we took a look at your equipment compared to mine, a lot of yours was what? It was... I think yours was a lot of maxed equipment, wasn't it?
It was maxed, calibrated too. So it was plus 10 max calibrated, like as good as it gets equipment. And I really invested a lot of time and calibration tickets to make sure like all my teams are ready to go. And I could have planned it a little bit better, but I'm happy the way it turned out. I'm really happy the way it turned out.
Right. And see, one thing that was actually very, very intriguing to me is that a bunch of my equipment was just +5. Because how am I supposed to invest in equipment if all I ever ran was 0-2? Now, I'll be doing this on the stream, especially since I just got my 3rd grape, and I'm going to, call it there. I am going to be running 5-2 Night, and that's the map that you ran, I believe.
Yeah.
At what, 1,200 some odd times or so?
I can check right now. Some odd, like, not even that much, honestly. Like, comparatively, so I ran 5-2 Night 1,561 times, and I ran 0-2 4,773 times. So in that comparison, if you look at my equipment, that is honestly not that many runs for the equipment that I have.
Right. And now don't let him fool y'all, because I think I was taking a look at his armor, and he had 60 plus armors. Okay, 60 plus armors at +10. All right, now let me put this into perspective for y'all. When I looked at my +10 armors, I think I had like 12 to 18. 12 to 18. He had 5 times as many, +10 equipment. And so there was, dude, that was just something that I couldn't believe, man. It's like, yo, how is that just stacking up? And so, we put it into the damage calculator, and his best team compared to my best team, I think you were outparsing me at what, 9, 10, 11k damage.
It was 11,000 damage.
11,000 damage
per 5 seconds. I think every 5 seconds I was doing 11,000 more damage than you.
And the biggest reason, and we had relatively the same level fairies. We had,
Yep.
now of course we were using different units because we have a different
Yeah.
play style. But his team, because of his equipment compared to my 11,000 damage, all right, y'all do not need to underestimate your equipment as badly as I did. Now, because of his equipment, being so much better than mine, you ran your maps, your ranking maps, several times faster than me. You see what I'm saying?
Not only several times faster than me, I wouldn't say fairy commandless, but
Mm-hmm.
almost fairy commandless. Like the only fairy commands I would spend were taunts on the bosses, taunts on the cannons and parachutes.
Right.
And
Eh,
that was like pretty much everyone. Like you had to do that obviously, right?
right.
So basically, and I would argue like you were more prepared in terms of berries, considering you had like level 10 skills or whatever. I was running like all level 1 skills except for my parachutes. One airstrike was level 5 and my taunt was level 10, but other than that everything else was level 1 skill. So
Right. And see, that's something that, because of my fairies being so high leveled with their skill level, excuse me, or with their actual level, their star rarity. At the time, I never even had a 3-star going into deep dive. But I will say this: I had to use 150 to 180 fairy energy per run, and I only ran it 3 times. And so, one thing that absolutely destroyed me was on that Sunday when I did my run, I could not make it back because when we started talking about the discrepancy between my equipment to yours, I found out that I was able to keep up per se because of my fairies. I'd have shield fairies for my SMGs so they could tank. I'd have defense fairies for my shotgun teams, shotgun machine gun teams, so that way they could stand to tank a little bit longer. I'd have airstrike fairies on 3 of my teams, so that way, hey, if I ran into something, I could get some extra damage. And
mhm.
a lot of it was revolved around my kiting. And I know, one of the main jokes, on my ranking runs was, yo, we finna have a 10-day reset run where, oh, I took 12 damage, reset. I took 9 damage, reset. And a lot of my runs were just mainly resetting because I just couldn't afford to take the damage and take the hit on that because of my lack of equipment. So where my equipment failed, my fairies picked me back up. But at the end of the day, I almost want to say, and I know you joke about it here and there, I honestly think the equipment's more important than fairies in some aspects. In some aspects that I don't know, man. It's just so insane how much difference there was when we started counting in the equipment
Yeah.
to show the differences in our score. And it's 3K.
Yeah, I would agree. The thing was too that my equipment gave me an advantage over you was I was able to do. I think I did a total of like maybe 14 runs
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
ranking because I was spending maybe 60 energy per run. So I would go to sleep and make back all my energy and ready to rock and roll again. Whereas
Exactly.
you would use up all your energy and you're like, gotta wait, a day, maybe two. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. Right.
But one thing too, I think people underestimate calibrating their equipments too,
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
was actually this was something I was confused about because I was doing my ranking runs, obviously giving I think it was Sopmod. I gave her level 10 uh EOTech, the holographic sight,
Okay.
because she equips 2 scopes.
Right.
Her crit scope was max calibrated, but her EOTech was not, but it was max enhanced.
Mhm.
But then I was swapping her out with someone else, and I looked at her equipment, and I noticed, wait a minute, a level 0 holographic is giving me more stats than this plus 10 one. And
Oh.
I looked at the calibration, and it was because this one was uncalibrated, and the other one was max calibrated. So I wouldn't underestimate calibrating your equipment. I think people really, they don't take into account the calibration and they try to power through calibrations through enhancement. But
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think enhancements do help, but they cannot like recover that much. Like in some cases, a fully calibrated equipment is better than a fully enhanced one.
I see.
And something I do every week is I at least fully calibrate one equipment for my weekly. I know the weekly says only 5 calibrations,
Right.
but you're never gonna calibrate your equipment with just doing 5 a week.
Yep. I agree. 100%.
Yep. So I do one. It doesn't matter how many calibration tickets it takes. One will get maxed out every week.
I
And
respect that.
that leads up into the next event, and I have equipment ready.
Mm-hmm.
So
Dang. So, this hey, you came out on top. Is there anything that you'd like to say in regards before we move to, I think, what you and I are both looking forward to in talking about the map? But is there anything that you'd like to jab at or talk about before we move on forward?
hey man, I'm just saying you were pretty confident going in, weren't you? Pretty confident going in. I think you're downplaying how much shit you were talking. But hey, it's all in good fun. I'd say I was actually pretty concerned I was gonna lose at the beginning. I think you felt it too.
Yes, yes, yes.
At the beginning, I was like, God damn, like I can't get these runs in. There were even, I think at the beginning, like my first to third run, I was getting like 500k runs. I was like, oh my god, bro, I can't get my head around this map. And we'll talk about the boss spawning mechanics and stuff a little bit more in the next section.
Right.
But I was struggling, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna have to go into this interview. All the shame in the world. But no, you never give up. Never give up. And hey, once I got a hang of the map, and honestly, I think me struggling through the map actually gave me the advantage at the end, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. So yeah,
dude, you definitely did me a lot easier than I would have done you if you lost. I'll tell you that much. But let me go ahead and say this. I had a side little, I guess, like promise or a little deal. A deal is a much better word. I had a little side deal with my boy StarCraft, and I said, hey, if I beat Dumplilngs, I'll watch JoJo the anime. And let me tell y'all this, when he passed me, there was like, he passed me, I think, on a Friday or a Saturday. I did my run on that Sunday. And when I messed up my run, and I was so far into it with the fairy energy, the first thing I thought of in my head, hey, I ain't gotta watch JoJo, so I'm good. I didn't have to watch JoJo. That was my one saving factor out of this. And so, hey, I'm gonna say this. Going forward into the future, knowing how I play, my play style, and, long kiting, one thing that I really noticed was if I had did a ranking run and then farmed for units and then did a ranking run when my energy came back up instead of farming for everything, and then there were some days where I would just do my dailies and then just be done with playing. So, had I played it differently, that's something that I would have been able to get in more runs. But one thing that I've learned was my playstyle apparently is HP tanks and invulnerability compared to evasion tanks, which evasion tanks, everybody's in love with them. I highly value invulnerability. And this is something to this day, it's kind of hard for me to wrap my head around. So would you mind just very quickly talking about the differences between the evasion tanks to the HP tanks?
This was something I was gonna. You literally read my mind. I was gonna bring this up, and this is an advantage. No, this is seriously. I think this is kind of one of the reasons why I won as well. Is you rely so much on HP tanks and invulnerability. And by all means, those are really good traits and attributes. And invulnerability is really good if you know how to time it. And I think invulnerability does reward kiting a lot more than evasion. Because basically what your strategy, what you're trying to do is force the enemy not to attack you until your skill can proc.
Yes.
And once your skill procs, you're golden.
100%.
You're not taking any damage.
100%. Yes, sir.
But see, if you compare our runs actually, and it doesn't show this on the screen, but I, according to the game, I mean, this is also a joke. According to the game, I did 3 repairs on my ranking run. I swear to God, I only did 1. I swear to fucking God. But I don't know. Like, I could have done 3. I could have done 3, and I just forgot, because Lord knows I was tilted by the end of this event.
Amen.
I ran it like 14 times, and I was just over. I was over it. You know what I'm saying? But you know, I only did 3 repairs compared to, I think, your run. You did like 21, right?
23. I did 23 repairs on that score on the screen that you see. 23 repairs.
Yeah, and see, the advantage of evasion tanks is not only do you not have to kite, but, I mean, you can still kite with evasion tanks. It's not like you can't, right? But the thing is you're not taking any damage, and invulnerability kind of lacks when you are forced to take damage and you have no choice but to take damage, right?
I see.
For instances, bosses, right? For example, Gaia. There's no running away from Gaia.
Yes, 100%.
Pop the taunt fairy, and you just, you know, you stand there, you shoot grenades, you dodge her attacks, and then you just pretty much pray to RNG that she doesn't target your DPS or whatever.
Right.
So that's why evasion tanks are so good, is because they're good in almost every in pretty much every situation, I would say, except for maybe snipers. I'd say that's where invulnerability tanks really take the advantage over evasion tanks.
Okay.
So there's definitely pros and cons to both, but I'm in love with evasion tanks because a lot of evasion tanks actually have better buffs than the invulnerability tanks. UMP 45, you know, hey, she's meta.
Right.
Damage, raw damage, and crit. Like, that's just the bread, and that's your milk and cookies, you know, for your AR. So I would argue the evasion tanks, at least at this point in time, are the better bet, considering you're getting better buffs and arguably better skills, considering UMP 40 or 45's smoke grenade is just, it's invaluable. It's just, you know.
Right. So I have one question for you, because I had a squad of UMP 45 and UMP 9. Okay. And I had some, I guess, +5 equipments, maybe +4 exoskeletons on them.
Yeah.
Do you think that the reason why they took so much damage is because it was not max enhanced, was not max calibrated, or was I just having bad RNG with my evasion, or was it just a little bit of both?
Without a doubt, it's because you did not have a maxed out exo.
Okay.
See, the thing with evasion tanks is you're pretty much betting on RNG, right? So the better RNG you have, the more likely you are to not take damage, right?
Okay.
So I would say you having... I always tell this to people when they're talking to me about enhancing equipment, and a lot of people are like, oh no, I only go to 5. A lot of people are like you. I'd say most people are like you. They just go to 5 and they stop. And I say, if there's one thing that you max out, it's armor plates and exoskeletons. Those are 2 things you cannot skimp on.
Okay.
Armor plates especially, because the way it works in this game is it's thresholds, right? You're either, like, you want as much armor as possible, so those enemies are doing 1 damage to you, not 60, not 30.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because your shotguns are not going to evade. They're the definition of, you know, tanking, not invulnerability, but pretty much like no evasion, high HP. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if you're not giving them that armor advantage, then you might as well just use something else, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying?
Makes perfect sense.
And with evasion tanks, if like, and even invulnerability tanks, I would argue, why wouldn't you give them that extra evasion? Because there are times, like I was talking about, where your G36 is gonna have to take hits. Well, why not give her dodge and invulnerability? You know what
I
I'm saying?
see. Yep,
Which
100%.
I was using G36, and I wish I streamed my ranking run, but my friend Frank was helping me and watching me do my event, and literally my G36 went down to like 50 HP, and I didn't repair her.
Mm.
What I was doing was I was using a UMP 45 and a G36
Uh-huh.
as a G36 as an off tank, UMP 45 as a main tank,
Okay.
and I was switching them. And when G36 got to her, I'd swap her out to the off tank, and I would make UMP 45 tank until the shield was up. Then I would, retreat her, pop the shield, and then it was game at that point. You know what I'm saying?
Ah, okay.
So, you could do a little mix. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
But
okay.
the reason why I don't like invulnerability tanks is, again, those tiles. I would say the only one I really enjoy using is G36, because Thompson and MP5 have those weird tiles that I really don't like.
Right. I got you. Well, hey, man, like I said during that call, I appreciate, sharing that information with me. And,
Yeah.
of course, I wanted to have that on the podcast as well. But let's go ahead and move forward to the part that I think you and I are both very, very much looking
Yeah.
forward to. And that's
Mhm.
going to be the actual ranking map. Now, I have the image that you and I talked about having on here.
Yeah.
And this is something that, by no means are we saying like, you know, everybody's wrong or everybody's right or anything like that. But this is just something that you and I came to a conclusion on. And it was very intriguing and very interesting. And I think when Deep Dive Plus, if it does come around, which I hope it does, and it has the same mechanic, I'm definitely going to be following this. And I think it'll produce a higher score. So I have the picture up on the screen. Dumplings, if you'd like to go ahead and go forward with this, because I know you've got a lot to say about
Oh
it.
yeah. Man, I was pretty upset on what people were telling other people to do, because I think it was screwing over a lot of people that not only were aiming high, but even newer players that were just struggling to do the map, and they just wanted the scope, which, I mean, who doesn't want that scope? It's a really good scope. The rewards for this ranking were so good,
Yes.
and it was making me a little angry that people weren't recommending doing this strategy, because
Mm-hmm.
it was just so much easier on newer players. And not
Mm-hmm.
only that, it got me a top 100 score.
Right.
But I literally did last minute research
Mm-hmm.
with Frank. I was talking to Frank about the podcast,
Right.
and he was like, "Hey, bro, yeah, like, I don't understand." And we were talking about our frustrations, and he was like, "Hey, but I think I know why." And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "Because in KR, they didn't have the same system as we did." And I'm like, "What do you
Correct.
mean?
Correct.
They didn't get points for capturing nodes
Yep.
and helipads and
Yep.
stuff." He's like, "So people were probably following KR guides by the book and not actually, thinking about it for themselves." And I was like, "That makes complete sense."
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me walk you through step by step, slowly, the reason why I think that the KR, away is wrong, in my opinion.
Okay.
So there are 37 total boxes and helipads on the map.
Okay.
Total.
Okay.
So that means, and there are 10 boxes, 27 heliports. That adds up to 37.
Okay.
There are 9 neutral helipads that do not spawn enemies at all, including the Jupiter cannons. Because remember, Jupiter cannons sit on top of
Correct.
helipads.
Correct.
So these 9 do not spawn enemies at all. So
Mm-hmm.
they're free game to capture.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them are boss nodes,
Yes.
right? And that's not in the 9 neutral helipads. That doesn't count for the 9.
Right.
So what people were telling people to do was to not capture on the screen here these yellow nodes and these red star nodes, because people were saying you want the mob spawn on turn 14 because they give you more points, and you want as many mobs as possible
Mm-hmm.
because obviously mobs give you points, right?
Yes.
But thinking about it, me and my friends were in a call literally for like, I'd say like 4 hours. We were discussing, debating, and we are like, this makes no sense. Why would you go for turn 14 spawn? Is one spawn really worth the helipads you'll miss? Because there are 37 total boxes and helipads, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you're going to capture all of them unless you start capping early, right?
Right.
So we were debating it, and we came to the conclusion that there's no way that these turn 14 spawns are worth it, and let me tell you why.
Okay.
You look on the bottom right here, this yellow square.
Yes.
That's actually, that helipad's actually worth 2,500 points, not 3,000 or not
2,000.
2,000, because there's a node to the right of it that you're guaranteed to encircle,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Going up that blue diamond helipad,
Mm-hmm.
if you encircle this, there's a node on the right and a node that you're standing on. That's 1,000 points,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
So we did the math, and basically, best case scenario, and we're going by what other people are saying. Don't capture all the nodes or all of the the red stars and the yellows, right? Best case scenario, by turn 14, and now this is like impossible in my opinion. There's no way that you'll make this, but let's just say magic frou unicorn dust, and it happens, right?
Okay.
Best case scenario, there are 15 helipads and boxes that you're not capping.
Okay.
If you have all the neutral nodes and all the boxes capped,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I both know those boxes are extremely hard to keep a hold of when those mobs are spawning and they're, stepping on them and they're ruining it and everything, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
there's really no way you can have all these boxes at the same time all the time.
Right.
And what also didn't make sense with the turn 14 was, keep in mind we have to keep control of the supply node,
Mm-hmm.
the supply line. And minimum, that's 3 teams tied up defending that line at all times. Minimum. I think there are some that require 4.
Mm-hmm.
So best case scenario, you're saying you have 3 teams tied up, and then on turn 14, you have another 3 tied up on those white nodes surrounding your command post, because you don't want them taking those nodes. You have to defend them from
Right.
the turn 14 spawn.
Right.
So that's 6 teams tied up, and that leaves you only 4 teams to actually go around and do what you need to do: clear clogs, fight the boss if you haven't fought the bosses yet or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
get your last Jupiter cannon, whatever last minute things you need to do. It's it's unrealistic in my opinion, and you're giving up the movement that those helipads give you.
Okay.
So basically, what we came up with was, capture the red star nodes at the end of turn 9,
Okay.
so you get that turn 9 spawn,
Right.
and you forego the 14 spawn. Then the yellow nodes you spawn at the end, or you capture at the end of turn 11.
Okay.
So you forego the 14 spawn. So that reduces the number from 15 best case scenario to 10 best case scenario.
Right.
That makes a lot more sense. And again, it's magic frou for you to believe that you're not going to have boxes that are uncapped.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And also, people were saying, spreading the rumor, hey, it's more important for you to get the turn 15 spawn than capture the nodes. And again, I highly disagree with this strategy, because you have to get a manticore for it to make up for you not capturing that helipad,
Right.
or anyone over 30k,
Mm-hmm.
basically 30k CE.
Right.
But then you're also not taking into account all the regular nodes you're getting in that case. Like for the examples I was showing you, like, that bottom one's 25 points, that one's 1,000 points, and you're not taking all of that into account. So I would argue you're actually losing points doing that.
Right.
So that was something that I really didn't understand what people were doing, and me and Frank added it up, and it's like 162,000 points for all the boxes, all the helipads, and that's no nodes, 162,000 points. So I was like, man, there's no way that turn 15 and turn 14 are worth these spawns. Yes, maybe they get you more points, and I'm sure there are some people in the top 100 that did do this strategy and got really good luck
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
somehow on turn 15 surrounded these nodes, so it was 100% that they would get these mobs to hit them.
Right.
But it's just not realistic, in my opinion, for this magic scenario to happen.
Yeah, and see, when you turned around and started explaining that to me, because when you told me, imagine that I capped the 2 red nodes, imagine I capped the yellow nodes, I'm not tied down to 4 teams running the entire map and having to kill and clear the entire map with 4 teams.
Mm-hmm.
I can turn around and actually use, let's say, 6, 7 teams to go and sweep through everything on top of more movement. And
Yep.
so when I heard that, or when we were discussing that, that was something I just could not wrap my head around, because number one, that would have had to mean that my run early on the one that got me my top 100 spot had really good RNG, because
Yeah.
I was playing, the way that, you had to pray for spawns, basically.
Yep.
But then turning around and, you and I saw, some people that would capture these boxes and capture these nodes and just say, hey, I'm going to have to take the L on these units spawning, and then they'd go and just funnel mobs on the top side or the bottom side. And they'd come out with top 40% scores running 6 or less teams.
Yeah. And I have a friend, I'm not gonna say whose name it was because I didn't get permission for them to say their name or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
that person had only 4 teams ready, easy top 40% in one run. Just doing the secure method that I was talking to you about. So, like, if you do the math, all you need to do is like 300,000 points,
Yeah.
and then capture the whole map, and you got top 40.
Yeah.
Like, it was that easy, and people were struggling and doing the wrong strat. Like, I don't understand.
Right. And that's something that it was just incredible, to hear that. And going forward, one thing that this discussion that you and I had, off podcast and during the podcast just now, one thing that has taught me is really think for yourself. Yes, you can use the old guides or the old methods as a I guess guiding way. You can take into account, but take it with a grain of salt. You see what I'm saying? Where had I sat down with people and did what you did, or had we sat down together and we talked it out, both of us probably could have ran top 25. You never know. But the fact still remains is that things that happen on the older servers are not always going to be the same as on the EN server. And one thing, yeah, I don't know if you expected me to mention this, but it's the perfect segue, dude. One thing is the great thing going around.
Oh my god, yeah. Don't even get me started. I am... Oh, dude.
Hold on.
Honestly, I don't even... I get so mad that, like... I get so mad when CN and other servers make fun of EN, and then we come up with this shit, and then I get it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, whatever. Like,
so for those who don't understand what we're talking and laughing about, basically right now we have the rescue event going on, and we have heard, and people are doing, they're farming for multiple grapes. All right. And, I've heard some people going for 5. I've heard some people going for 10. Some people going for, however many they want to go for. Okay? And they're all saying it's to prepare for Singularity. Now, Singularity is going to be in quarter 4. I would assume it's going to be in the, 10th month or the 11th month. All right? That's just my guess. That's my assumption. But you mean to tell me that you want to turn around and invest thousands of data, of intermediate data? It's 1,020 intermediate data for one character. All right. So if you go 5 grapes, that's 5,100 intermediate data. If my Ian math off the top of my head works correctly, 5,100 intermediate data on top of all the advanced data that you have to do for one character. And something that you pointed out to me was that's only for that ranking event. Are you even going to use it afterwards?
Yeah, she pretty much becomes well, not useless, but you're not going to use like 6 grapes after that. It like maybe like that, like I don't know, like, but not that I know of, like nowhere time in the new future.
Right.
So she's just taking up inventory space at that point, and she's just like holding all those resources and time you put into her. But like, I don't know, man. Like, it just like, honestly, hey, if this event comes around and everyone's using 6 grapes and I don't get top 100 because, you know, it was 6 grape meta or whatever, I'm more than happy to lose, honestly.
Right.
I'm more than happy to. I'd rather not get top 100 and not invest all this time and investment into one character
100%.
One event.
100% agree. Now, for those of y'all who are like, well, why would you ever say that, blah, blah, blah. I have a KR sensei, okay? Now, obviously, like, there's a language barrier. Like, she speaks straight up Korean, and I speak only English. So, hey, Google Translate doing the Lord's work for me. You see what I'm saying? But I was so concerned with this dumplings. Let me tell you this, man. I was so concerned with it because I was sitting here and I was like, yo, what's going on here, man? I hear all these people farming for 4, 5, 6 grapes. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's so much. Now, 2 grapes, let me tell you why 2 grapes is understandable. Because when Chapter 10 comes out, 10-4 Emergency, that is going to be the spot where you can farm multiple cores. Now, it's not a great place to level, but that becomes the Omega core heaven, okay? But having 2 grapes, having the units there to, you know, make it possible, that's a little difficult, okay? So I can understand if you get 2 grapes, all right? I turned around and I asked KR Sensei, I said, yo, you know, I got all these people talking about they want to get 10 grapes for isomer, or they want to get, you know, so many grapes for isomer. And I said, is it worth me, you know, investing and farming right now for isomer? And straight up, she just goes, you can get 2 for right now, and then in 1.5 years, isomer will come, okay? You can surely get 1 grape by production by that time. And I said, okay, you know what? That makes sense because we're going to have new characters that comes out. We're going to have more rifles, by the way. Grape is not the only rifle. We'll have more rifles that we want to pull for that we'll need to invest in. I'm sure 1 will come along the way. And I said, okay, that makes sense. And she even told me that she used 3 grapes during isomer. And I said, and she, you know, it made life easy for her. I said, okay, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Then I said, well, what about for singularity? And she goes, well, having, you know, 2, I think is more than enough because, you know, you will need it for some things, but if you have any more than that, you're over investing. You know, going 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're over investing into that. I said, okay, that kind of makes sense. And now I'm sitting here in a panicked worry because I was like, okay, well, what if my question isn't conveying properly because of the language barrier, right? So then I'd say, well, you know, how many should I farm for? What should I get? You know, is 2 okay? Is 3 okay? Like, you know, and I was panicking. I was frantic about it. And I was like, yo, I'm worried. You know what I'm saying? And this is like basically straight up. This is what it was translated. You do not need to dupe any characters in this game to get a very high score in ranking. And when I say very high score, I would assume she means top 100. You don't need to dupe anybody to get top 100 in this game. That's the beauty of the game. Okay? And then on top of that, you can easily turn around and let's say you have 1 extra grape. So you have 2 grapes total. for Singularity. She said that'd be more than enough. Then you pull one more in a year and a half's time for Isomer, and you're perfectly fine. And I said, you know what? I was like, and I was like, yo, are you sure? Are you sure? And basically, it came down to, bruh, calm down, chill out, you'll be okay. Get 2 grapes at minimum and call it a day. And so I kind of went a little bit further, and now look, a year and a half, that's a lot of pulls. I ain't finna test RNG like that. So, hey, I farmed my 3rd grape right now. I called it a day. But see, the difference here is I'm not going to invest into that grape until we get closer to Isomer, because there's no point for me, right? And so, like you say, like I say, like my KR sensei says, if you want to invest into 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 grapes, by all means. But if you do that, just remember grape has specific comps. Okay? And I'll tell you, shout out to Snake in the chat. One of the KR lads, he turned around and told me, we have a little joke or a little saying in KR. And he says, strawberry is grapes special equipment, meaning they go hand in hand. So if you got multiple of those, your grape ain't going to be as optimal as if you didn't have multiple strawberries to go along with it. On top of the same handgun to go along to deck that team out. You see what I'm saying? Because if you want a lot of rate of fire, imagine having to build a bunch of calicos, a bunch of, whoever else that does rate of fire, and just stacking 6 calicos, 7 calicos.
Yeah.
Doesn't
make any sense.
Do you really want to go down that path? If you do, hey, by all means, more power to you. That ain't my account. I ain't gonna have to worry about that. But at the end of the day, this is something that honestly I wasn't gonna bring up, but it was such a perfect segue to talk about. That if you do that, just remember you're not only investing into grape, you got to invest into the other 4 team members that go along with that. So hey, by all means, you do you, baby. But at the end of the day, I'll take my 2 grapes and I'll take everybody else that's going to be doing a different facet of the game that needs to be done, and I'll call it a day. And that, that's what Sensei told me. That's what I relayed to you. That's what I relayed to my Twitch chat, and that's what I relayed here on the podcast. And that's all I got to say about that. And hey, if you got any more words about the shenanigans, go for it. Because
like I said, man, it's ridiculous to me how panicked people are. Like, dude, we saw the same thing with Arctic Warfare. Oh, you need 10 machine gun, shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, would it be nice to have 10 machine gun, shotgun for Arctic Warfare? Yes, because literally machine gun, shotgun killed everything in Arctic Warfare without taking any damage.
Mm-hmm.
But did you need 10 machine gun, shotgun? No, AR SMGs did fine. Rifle handgun did fine. I would argue you doing 10 shotgun machine gun screw you over, because how are you gonna kill the bosses?
Right, 100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So people were just, I don't know, man. Like, I'm done listening to these damn kids panic over these things.
Right.
And like I said, if I'm wrong and I lose and I eat my words, fine, dude. But I'm not gonna invest in 5 grapes. Like, it's just not happening.
Right.
And that's coming from a guy that used to not dupe, and then now I do dupe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And now I'm more than happy to dupe. I have multiple copies of the same character, but I'm not going over 3.
Yes.
And
same.
And I'm not and that's just a rule. Like, I'm never gonna go over 3. It just seems ridiculous for me to have to use the same character over and over and over again, especially for just one event. It just seems really not smart to me,
And honestly, that would be bad game development on Micah's end.
Yeah.
To force me to use, the
same character over and over again. Yeah, it'd be boring too. Like,
right.
The beauty of this game is the unit variety, and the teams. Like, for example, all the teams we were discussing on our voice call, all of our ranking teams were different. No 2 teams were alike.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
And we dupe too. So everyone talks about the meta, but even the meta can be played around with.
Right.
For example, do you want to use Contender in your MG shotgun team, or do you want to use Mark 23? Both are considered meta, but both are really good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. Like, I don't believe this shenanigans that everyone's trying to blow up. Mm, yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Right. And this is the last thing that I want to point out on the shenanigans is the what was the word that I used earlier before I took my nap. Man, I don't remember the word that I used, but people are over expecting, I guess, that if their team is not 100% prepared by the start date of the said event, that they instantly are just trash or they're instantly lost. Now, how does that make any sense? Because Dumplings was telling me that when he had his fairies going through training, he got them done 3 days before the end of before the start of the event. His best ranking run did not happen until 3 days or 4 or 5 days before the end of the event. He did not do his first ranking run until a week and a half after the event started. That's so many data days that he was able to do and invest in. That's so many days that he could have been doing 0-2 if he needed to level up. But this whole like exaggeration of if I don't have it by the start of the ranking or by the start of the event, I'm doomed is completely and utterly false. And that's something that I think a lot of people kind of get into their heads and they're like, if I don't have it ready, I'm done for. And that's one of the things that like I wanted to address here while we're at. Hey, just pile it all on. You know what I'm saying? You know,
Yeah.
It's okay to be underprepared going into it because it's not like you're not allowed to farm other things. And you know, I know a few people that come to my mind, you know, I don't want to say no names, they were doing, they were farming the entire time, and then they try a ranking run. Okay, well, I definitely need to level this person up more. Okay, then boom. And then they go and do it, and then they're perfectly fine. Like, it's okay to go in a little underprepared because at the end of the day, look at Dumplings. Let me ask you this, Dumplings, would you say that you were 100% prepared for this event?
No, you'll never be 100% prepared for any event.
You will never.
Never, ever.
Never.
Because there will always be a T-Doll that you were like, oh man, if I had her right now, the run would be a little bit more efficient. Or,
yep.
Oh man, for example, my equipment, as pristine as everyone says it is, I talk to everyone. I think the only person I've met whose equipment is more pristine than mine is Frank's.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
And even I was like, hey, what's been happening is these ARs actually, sometimes they'll get hit, or sometimes, you have no choice but to get hit a little bit.
Yep.
So, or maybe I kited incorrectly against a boss. You know what would be nice? Those exos that don't minus your damage.
Yep.
If I had all those maxed out, then,
Yep.
I might have a chance of a dodge. Or, those off-tank pistols on your SGMG teams?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, you don't need those to dodge. Your SG is gonna... Not true! Especially when the drones in this event...
Oh my god.
Like, the drones in this event were, like, anti-shotgun machine gun, and I think that's something that they did on purpose to contrast AW, where machine guns were just good against everything.
Mm-hmm.
So your shotgun was just standing up there getting shredded. It'd be better if your handgun could, take some of that load off, tank a little bit, let your machine guns reload. So, there's always going to be a doll that you want. Like, for example, it was CMS for me. I was like, oh, it'd be really nice to have CMS right now.
Yep.
But did I necessarily need her to get top 100? Obviously not.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. 100%.
Another thing to caveat on what you just said was that particular friend I was talking about earlier that did Arctic Warfare with only 4 teams did the ranking a day before it ended, and she got top 40%. So she was cutting it real close, and and she still got top 40%. So I mean, I don't see what the issue. And again, another thing to say, Arctic Warfare had an EXP event during the event.
Right. Yep.
And people were freaking out and saying like, "Oh, this is dumb" or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that's not necessarily the case. Like, you know, you have time to do other things, so you
Right.
know.
Well, Pastor Dumplings, this has just been a huge reflection on Deep Dive as an event, as a ranking event, as a story and things of that nature. And of course, I appreciate your time and having you here on the podcast. Is there any final words or any final banter that you'd like to throw out or jab at me? Because a singularity coming up, what's the business, man?
Hey, you already know. You're trying to egg me on. I know it. But I said after this event, I was like, oh man, it's like I was so burnt out on Deep Dive, and I still am.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know if I want to, another competition for Singularity.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about it, hey, it's probably gonna happen. Let's be real here. Like, I get hungry. Your boy wants to win, and he always does. You know what I'm saying? So, like, the thing is, though, is like I just realized I was talking with Frank, and he was like, "Hey, there isn't a ranking event for Cube, right?" And I'm like, "You're right, bro." So we're not getting a ranking event until Singularity.
Yep.
So I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get hungry by then, dude." Like all this time is for prep. Like, in my opinion, you don't need a prep for Q plus. Like, sure, you might need to prep a little bit,
right?
But I think if you're, relatively well off, you're gonna do the story just fine.
Yep, 100%, 100%.
So literally, I think you said it was Q4 is when Singularity is scheduled to come out for us.
Yes. You
have all the way until then just to do 0-2 and 5-2 night. Hey, your boy is gonna get hungry.
Dude, so, 100% agree.
I'm not gonna, talk my way into a hole like I did this event. Good thing I won, because I'd be really sad if I lost. But I'm not gonna talk myself into another hole for the next event, because there is the potential I could lose, especially now that you have my secrets. So not only are you gonna have good equipment, you're gonna have good fairies over me too. So hey, I'm gonna hold my tongue this time, but hey, for sure, top 100 at least.
Okay.
I will say that. Will say that.
All right, and you know what? I think that's a very humble move of you to hold your tongue. I think if I had won this, I think I'd be out the wazoo. Oh, now you ain't gonna get closer.
If I had lost, you already know I'd be like, "Nah, man, I'm coming back." But no, I'm back-to-back I'm like back-to-back World War champion, baby. And I'm like,
oh my God,
maybe it's time to, hang up the boxing gloves, But nah, I'll come out of retirement for sure. I just give me a minute. It's just
for sure.
I got so burnt out on DD. We were VCing and yeah.
And I think you and I don't know if it shows on me, but I know for me, as far as like the deep dive is concerned, your boy is so ready to take a fat break from farming the events, man. Like,
oh yeah.
So, but Pastor Dumplings, dude, it's always a pleasure to have you on here, man. Thank you so much for being here and talking about deep dive and just kind of reflecting and hanging out and the good vibes, man. I do appreciate your time, brother.
All right, man. Thank you, bro. Praise the DRR.
Amen, brother. Amen. Have a good one, bro.
You too, man.
Peace. So, guys, that was the wrap up of of my defeat against Pastor Dumplings. But see, yeah, as much as I want to egg it on because I lost, dude, I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet and just move on to the next segment.